So Roland has just dropped firmware update version 3.0 for the SP-404 Mark II. And man, there's a whole bunch of new things it does that I want to make sure you know about. Now, there's a few new enhancements that require very little explanation. For example, things like it can now work with an SD card up to 1 TB in size. Or you can now set the tempo of your patterns to a decimal point by holding down Shift while turning the value knob. So you can set the BPM to like 86.3 or whatever. I've been lucky enough to play around with this for a minute, so in this video I'm going to walk you through some of the new stuff that I've taken a shining to. Perhaps my favorite small addition is being able to set what the default effects parameters are on startup. So for example, with Isolator, the initial setting has the mids boosted by 9.07 dB. That's a big number for me, so I'm going to lower that down to 2.3 dB. And to save that as the default setting, we hold down Shift and Mark for like 3 seconds. Now when I restart the 404 and hit Isolator, you'll see it's how I set it. And you can do this to all the MFX as well. Like I've changed scatter, vinyl sim, cassette sim, etc. You get the point. While I'm talking about MFX, you know how when you first turn on the SP-404 and hit MFX, it's scatter that pops up by default? You can change that now too. So for example, if I want a cassette sim to be the first MFX, I hit Shift plus pad 16 to open up effects settings, scroll across to other, and change MFX top to cassette sim. Now when I turn on the 404 and hit MFX, cassette sim. Okay, I want to take a second to appreciate the improvements they've made to the import sample screen. When I get into a folder with, say, kick samples I want to browse, you'll notice it now plays the sample automatically to preview it, whereas before you'd sort of scroll and hit subpad as you go. Also, if you hold down Mark while turning the value knob, you can scroll through the folder at high speed should you be looking for something at the bottom of the list. One last thing while we're here, and I'm not sure if this is a new thing or I'm a dummy who just noticed this today, but say if I wanted to grab these couple of kicks because they're variations from within the same kit, you could hold down Shift and select them, select a pad to import them. This next one is pretty awesome. We can now copy samples, banks, and patterns from one project to another. So I'm currently working in project 2. And I'm going to head on over to project 1 to find a snare to go with those kicks I just imported. To copy this snare sample from this project back to the project I was in before, I hit copy, the snare. By the way, hear how it plays the sample when I selected it? That's a new thing it does, and it does it in like the delete screen and other places as well. Anyway, see how it says P01 there? That means we're in project 1. I'll change that to project 2. And those kicks I imported were in bank B, and you can see marked in purple there. That's telling me that those kicks are already there. I'm going to put that snare on B4, copy, head on back to project 2. And like I said, you can do the exact same thing with patterns, and if you press copy and exit, like you'd normally copy a bank, you can now copy a bank across patterns as well. Alrighty, here's a quick one. Remember how in one of the last firmware updates they added that when you hold down copy in the pitch speed screen, you can adjust the pitch or volume or whatever parameter of all the samples in a mute group? Well now, if you hold down remain, you can adjust these things for all the samples in the bank at once. And of course that goes for the envelope screen as well. Okay, there's like 50 new things they've added, and there's no way I can cover all of them in just one video. So for this next part, I want to talk about the new functionality that they've added to the pattern sequencer that have become regular tools I use in my workflow now. I got this 2-bar pattern here. Pads 1 through 8 are my melodic samples, and pads 9 through 16 are my drums. The reason why I wanted to point that out is I want to copy the pattern on pad 1 to pad 2, but now we can hit remain, and I can select just the drums. Pretty cool, right? That has been a huge time saver for me. Now, when the SP-404 Mark II was first released, one thing that they introduced which I thought was brilliant was being able to resample a pattern to a pad. which I've talked about in videos before. Well, they've added to this. You can now convert patterns to samples, which is similar to resample, but you don't have to listen to it. It sort of just does it. And what you end up is the perfect loop. I'll show you. So to do this, you hit copy, select your pattern, in this case, pad 1, pattern select, which takes us back into sample world. Let's find us an empty sample, one of the flashing ones, B5, and hit copy. Righto, this next one is a big one. We can now record effects automation in patterns. That means you can turn effects on and off, as well as changing their parameters on the fly. So I'll make a copy of my pattern. After I start recording, I'll hit mark, which will turn on the motion capture, which records the stuff being turned on and off, and we'll go from there. You can also record pad mutes as well. So pad muting, if you don't know, is when you're playing a pattern, you hold down shift, reverse, and remain at the same time. Show you. So we can now record that as automated as well. So I'll make another copy just in case I screw it up. If you want to erase the effects automation you've just recorded, hold down shift and mark while it's recording to erase. One last thing, during playback, if you want to turn the effects automation on and off, hit the start end button. Okay, one last thing I think is an actually pretty useful tool is you can now quantize a specific sample in a pattern after you've recorded it. So for example, I'll try to record something completely unquantized and disgustingly horrible and see what I can do with it. Alright, that's pretty gross. Now I'll make a copy of that. Go to pad edit, select your pad, then hit record setting. This is a new screen. Up here it says Quantize. I'm going to set that to quarter notes because I'm going to try and get that kick and snare just tight on the beat. And strength is at 100%. And then you can notice down here we got the 3 pads that I played lit up. And it's just the kick and the snare I want to affect, and it won't touch the hi-hat. Quantize. Here goes nothing. So the original again. And the quantize, just the kick and the snare quantized. So the hat is still swinging kind of drunk, could be drunker, but the kick and the snare is tight and the pattern loops cleanly. Alright, that's probably enough for now. I'm sick of hearing my voice and I feel like I haven't even covered half of the new stuff, especially DJ mode. There's a lot of new stuff there. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the new firmware update. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. I've been having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, install it, give it a spin. Take it easy, peoples. Laters.